If you invested in the Coca-Cola company in 2000, from then till now, you've made like 2% a year. Not a great investment. The business has done really well. No problem with the business. But anytime you're buying at 45 times earnings and eventually that earnings number comes down to 15 times, you're going to have not such a great experience. If you take an example of something like Coca-Cola, for example. So Coke was selling in, I think, the early 2000 at something like 45 times earnings. And recently, it's been at about 15 times earnings. So basically, if you invested in the Coca-Cola company in 2000, from then till now, you've made like 2% a year. Not a great investment. The business has done really well. No problem with the business. But anytime you're buying at 45 times earnings and eventually that earnings number comes down to 15 times, you're going to have not such a great experience. So it's not enough to just buy great businesses. Price matters. And I remember I think it was in 2000, right when my funds had just started, I think been about a year or so, that one of my investors had been an employee of Microsoft. And in fact, he was one of the very early employees of Microsoft. He had retired from Microsoft, but with the stock options, et cetera, had done really well. And so he told me, listen, Mohnish, if you're ever coming to Seattle, I can introduce you to a bunch of Microsoft guys, and many of them may have an interest in putting money with you. And so I told him, as a matter of fact, day after tomorrow, I'm going to be in Seattle. What a coincidence, And so he said, oh, yeah, come on down, So, of course, at that time, I was, very happy to be raising assets, especially with someone saying, I've got a bunch of customers lined up for you. And so I visited Microsoft headquarters, and I met a whole bunch of folks, and some of them actually were, first 60 employees in the company and such. And of course, a number of them became investors. But I remember telling them at that time that, and I think they just thought I was some cheesy salesman saying this, but I told them that it was a terrible idea for them to be holding Microsoft stock. And they just thought, well, how stupid is this guy? Because all Microsoft had done until then had gone straight up, 30-40% a year for a long time. And the market cap, I think at the time, was over 600 billion. And I think eventually, it went all the way down to under 200 billion. And then, of course, now recently it's come. But even with Microsoft, from 2000 almost till just maybe 2013 or 14, you would have had almost no returns. And in fact, you would have had a rough ride because you would have gone down and then come up. So, and that wasn't even a .com, real business with real cash flows, but with very euphoric pricing. I think in 2000, Microsoft was making something like 10 billion, around 10 billion a year or so, and trading at 600 billion, and that math doesn't work so well.